Welcome to the Here We Go podcast. I'm Alan Hanna. This is my friend and co-host,
Spencer Sweeting.
Spencer Sweeting. Here we go. I do feel like as a Steeler fan, like we need to be doing Here We Go Steeler, but we're not going to do that.
You keep bringing that up in other episodes, and we're not going to have
I know. That'll get old. Today is a special episode. It could be a dangerous episode because of our guest.
Yeah, we have a very special guest, Alex Hanna, your
daughter, Alexandria Grace Hanna, the Alex. And right off the bat, yeah, we are very similar, and we're going to get an unfiltered Alex. I don't think she has any filters, so it's just straight up.
I haven't had the chance to spend a lot of time with Alex, but the few times I have, I've picked up very, very much that she's going to keep it real.
She is.
I am looking forward to the conversation. And I think it's a really great topic. We want to talk about, what it's like in a pastor's family, growing up in a as a kid whose parent is in ministry, and what is that like? Because you and I both know that there's a lot of pressure on our kids. There's a lot of expectations, and also they have a really unique view into the local church because they see how the sausage gets made, so to speak.
Right.
They see the best and the worst of us as ministry leaders. And so I know as a parent of kind of rising teenagers, we're like in the thick of it right now. And so I'm looking forward to just hearing what Alex has to say about, growing up in a pastor's house.
This is going to be like the real lives of pastors' families episode where, we're pulling back the curtain. And this was my idea, and I obviously love Alex, and she's worked for a church, and she'll tell a little bit about her story. And I told her, I said, I want you to be honest about areas in which I failed and your mom failed and some of the hurts growing up. Of being a PK, and all of us here, pastors' kids, and all of that. And so my hope, is record this. One of the things I really hope is that, because I understand that the majority of people listening to this aren't pastors' kids, and they may not even be in full-time ministry, that it does give your average church person a look under the hood at some of the expectations that are put on our kids, not intentionally. No one is saying, and today's not about, bashing congregations in the present, but just sometimes there are unrealistic expectations put on us as pastors, on our spouses and our kids. And so I think people are going to get a really honest look today about what that is.
Yeah. Something I was just thinking of is, I didn't grow up in the church. My parents didn't become Christians. My dad became a Christian when I was a teenager, and we started going kind of in high school. And so I experienced a little bit of church culture as a teen, but you grew up a PK.
Yeah.
So, when you're thinking about this topic, I know there's going to be a kind of a generational shift. What did you experience as a PK?
Yeah, my dad was a pastor. We grew up north of here, Pittsburgh and Newcastle, and he wasn't a lead pastor. And I can't say I have. Maybe when I was 14, I thought it was the worst experience in the world. But in retrospect, looking back, I didn't have it that bad. But I did feel a lot of the same expectations that my daughter did. And for me, it's a little surreal today because as hard as I tried, to do a great job of being a dad and raising kids, I realized, in this conversation that there were areas that I still dropped the ball in and I failed. And so, I was fortunate too, going that I went away to Christian college, but then came back and had my own personal relationship with the Lord and grew deeply in that, and love my mom and dad today. And I never will forget, because I didn't go into ministry right away after college. I was in human resources for a while and recruiting. And the day that I called my dad and I said, hey, I think I'm going to go into full-time ministry, the look on his face or the tone in his voice changed. It was really? You really feel God calling you to do that? Exactly. And so, it's just the reality. There is a weight, there is a heaviness. And again, you've experienced it, and we'll talk about it a little bit in the episode as well. Like, I do think there's some church dynamics too. Like, I was going to ask you, like, you've raised 3 daughters, and even in church size dynamics different. Like, when we're talking about it, the churches that I was in were a little bit larger. And so while my kids and my wife felt pressured, you can hide a bit in larger churches.
Yeah.
And so, like, we didn't even really get into that. But with you, like, when you're at a church, a smaller church, like, there's no place to hide.
Yeah, so when we had, we planted a church. I was licensed by the Alliance to be a church planter the same week my second daughter was born. And so our daughter, Josie, she grew up with our church plant. Josie's 13 now. That church is 13 years old. And initially it was, it was a church where, it was a couple people coming to my house, and we were having dinner together, and we were having Bible study. And then my kids were some of the first kids in the kids ministry, and it was small enough that every parent took a turn, because that's just, how we made it function. But that church grew from 12 people in my living room to, 30, 40 people meeting weekly, to 300-400 people meeting. And just as it grew, for my kids, they were young enough that I don't know that they felt a ton of the pressure at that point.
Yeah.
But the shift started happening where, like, the demands on my time began to shift, and they started wondering, like, why is dad, always gone? And kind of towards the end of our time at the church plant, had become established enough that we had enough people there that came with, like, church expectations, that there began to be some of that pressure that they started to feel as they hit elementary school. But when we moved out to Colorado, it was a smaller church, and it was really, it was during COVID. And so it was hard to plug in. It was hard to connect. And, my wife and I are really sensitive of what people's expectations are for our kids, but they started to get a little bit of that, like, expectation that you show up to everything. And, oh, why aren't your kids here? And, they started to express that they were feeling pressure from the expectations of other people in what they wore, or, what, my daughter was really got into Stranger Things, which is a great show.
Yeah.
And, she had a Stranger Things, like, shirt, and she was like, I think it was called, like, the Hellfire Club shirt, which is a thing. And then she's like, she wants to wear it. And I'm starting to feel a little like, I don't know if you should wear a Hellfire Club shirt to church, because like, I don't know how these people are going to act. I'm okay with it, but I don't know how they're going to act. And I don't want to hear about it. I was thinking of it that way, but that made her feel, like I was pushing her away, or, like, not letting her be herself. And those are things that you wrestle with. But when you're at a smaller congregation, a couple hundred people, like, there's much more of a target. Whereas as here, it's a large enough church that they can hide a little bit.
Right. It's a great conversation. And, like, I'm just even sitting here thinking now, like, we never even got into the dynamic of being married. Like, I would suggest our spouses join us sometime, but then that would be the last episode.
Gosh.
Actually, it would never get posted. We would record it, but all of those.
There we went.
That would be a great name. But it's all of those dynamics are so different and really weird. It's a great conversation today, and I'm excited to have her here.
Well, here we go. We've got a very special guest today on a topic that is very, very personal, and we think also really important. Growing up as a pastor's kid, we have Pastor Alan's daughter, Alex Hannah, with us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Because we were doing this topic, I came in with my girl dad hat. I've got my Crocs on and kind of like relaxed mode. So I'm in dad mode fully for this interview.
Hopefully you're in counselor therapy mode.
Yeah, we'll see.
That may turn into
if you get a little spicy. We'll see how it goes.
I already have that.
We'll see how it goes. Well, Alex, why don't you just tell us a little bit? We're going to talk a little bit about your background and what you experienced growing up, but maybe just tell us a little bit about what you're up to these days. And
yeah, I live in Charlotte, North Carolina now. Been there about 1.5 years. Working for Young Life.
Nice.
Don't know what that is. It's nonprofit organization. Go into high schools, meet students, and get to share the gospel with them. So
that's awesome. Young Life was a really big, important part of my own journey. So it's really fun. And my daughter attended the first Young Life meeting for Quaker Valley High School.
Awesome.
So
That's
pretty
exciting.
awesome.
Exciting
Yeah.
stuff.
So you've been in Charlotte. What would you say has been your relationship with your faith growing up as a pastor's kid? Like, when do you think Jesus kind of really got a hold of your heart?
Great question. I think there's a misconception that because you grew up in the church, you just always have loved Jesus, and I have, in the simple sense of like childlike faith, accepted him at like 5. But when I truly started living for Jesus was probably my junior or senior year of high school.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, before we get into some of the heavier questions that we want to talk about, we like to ask folks who are on the show just what you're listening to. So what's in your headphones these days?
This is good. She's our youngest guest so far.
Youngest guest. Oh, sweet.
She's probably listening to the Black Crows, not the Counting Crows.
I don't even know what that is. What are the Black
It hurts my heart. It hurts
I'm
my heart.
sorry.
Never mind. We're really good.
I don't know what that is. Okay, the Jesus answer is I love SEC music, or that's like the band.
The Southeastern
Yeah,
Conference. No,
like they have really good, but you know what I'm talking about.
I'm actually familiar. I'm trying to
don't
think
know
of
how
the
you
song that
actually
I've
say it.
listened to from them, but
All
they're in one of
Struck
my...
is a good one.
Yeah.
Monday Morning Faith.
Monday Morning Faith is the song that's in one of my
It's a
playlists right now.
great song. What a God is one they just came out with. Awesome song. Now, like, what was I listening to if I'm going to the airport or something? And it's like main character energy.
What were you listening to this morning? That's a good question.
My hyperfixation song right now is Man I Need by Olivia Dean.
Okay.
It's a
I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, it's
but
a viral TikTok song.
Okay.
It
I'm going
came
to add
up
it to
on-
my...
It's great.
It came up on your Pandora.
No one uses Pandora but you.
You're right about this.
No one uses Pandora but him.
We were driving around and I found out that your dad uses Pandora and immediately started roasting
It's
him.
better than iTunes.
He went into a whole spiel. He started
But iTunes
preaching
was
the
like
gospel
Apple
of
Music now.
Pandora. There you go.
You what?
Unpopular opinion. Apple Music is like the green bubble text of music.
Oh,
Even though,
that hurts my heart too.
yeah. But because it's so
Did you say it's the
late.
green bubble text
I
of
did.
music?
I did.
Wow.
Yes. It's like someone texting you with a Samsung and now you're getting like all these
But you
individual...
flipped it onto Apple now.
Yes, because Apple was late to the game. Spotify did it well from the jump, so they get the blue text.
Okay.
But
Okay,
the
I
problem with
respect it.
Spotify, this is my problem with Spotify. When you want to listen to a mix of songs, unless you create your own playlist, like they have radio stations.
They do that on Spotify?
No, let me finish.
Sorry.
The radio stations on Spotify, all they are set playlists. So if you go back, and they're always in the same order. So you can hit shuffle, but it's the same, say, 50 songs.
False.
So,
That is false. It adjusts
Yeah, it's
based
false,
on what
Dad.
you're listening to, and it remixes it. So like I have an R&B one they created for
Fake
me because
news.
I also like Giveon. You know what
Okay.
Giveon is?
I have no idea.
Okay.
'Kay,
Really
who-
popular R&B artist.
who is I always ask you this, the girl that, it sounds like 90s R&B that you play for me?
No, that's Doechii.
Oh.
Wait, what was the song? There's a song. Is it? I didn't think it was Doechii. There was a song that you played.
Oh, you're
Uh-huh.
talking about Love.
That's a good song. Yeah, who is
and I
that?
always mess up her first name.
Okay.
It's Keisha Cole.
Okay.
I'm gonna get flamed for that,
Yeah,
but
that's
it's a great song.
There we go.
You said so many things in the past 5 minutes that I like barely have an understanding of.
See, you're
which is,
old now.
Which is
Which I've heard,
Which hurts my
I've heard
heart.
of you saying that you Mondays. You said something about Mondays.
So we were talking about getting a T-shirt together, a design for our new Monday services we have here at ACAC, and a friend had texted, "I got a case of the Mondays," and I was like,
Right,
"Oh, that'd be a
that's what it
great
was.
saying to like
A
flip
case
that
of the
around."
Mondays.
Like ACAC's got a case of the Mondays, but then I was talking to some of the younger staff, and they
Giving
were like,
Monday.
"It's Giving Mondays."
It's Giving Monday.
And I was like, oh, okay. That's like a different.
We should do a whole episode sometime just on language.
Gen Z
that-
slang.
My favorite thing to do is to run things that I'm about to tell my kid through a ChatGPT Gen Z filter.
I'd ask
Yeah.
you what the slang is.
How should I say this? And then I just text them like encouragement, but in their own native tongue.
Brain rot
Brain
is
rot.
what that's
yeah.
called.
She's been trying to get me to use clock it in a sermon.
You did
Yeah.
on Gospel Sunday.
Well, it was a subtle Gospel Sunday. I could get away with it, but it's just like,
Yeah,
got
if you can
points.
ever work in 6-7 into a sermon,
6-7.
or 41, and that's another one
What's
right
41?
now. 41.
I haven't heard that one.
These are things that my kids are saying around the house.
6-7 means nothing. It's literally just
6-7.
Six- it's in a song.
Let me
It's
bring us
literally
back
a-
on track with what's in our headphones.
right.
PA, what are you listening to?
What am I listening to? A lot of fantasy football podcasts, which I think has
Yeah.
been said before. I have been on a John Mayer kick lately.
Okay.
So like old Any Given Thursday. That's a good album, good live album.
Fun fact, the weekend that I first encountered ACAC as a church in October 2001 in Pittsburgh, also met John Mayer.
You told me this
Yeah,
story.
but
That's
we're
wild.
not going to
We
get
won't
to
go
a,
there, but
a
you
deeper
were at a
dive, but
diner with him.
we hung out for a bit, talked a little bit of Joni Mitchell.
That's
it
so
was
casual.
cool.
Yeah.
But this is pre John Mayer being John Mayer, so
So
that's like
okay.
a whole thing.
One question. I know we have a lot to talk about, but I am curious. Okay, what is a band or song you like from our generation?
Okay. Well, easily like Maze. What's that song? Feel So Good? Mace. Sorry. Biggie
Oh,
Smalls.
wow.
Love me some Biggie.
Mid 90s, okay.
All right, there we go.
There we go.
Yeah,
90s
I
like
did-
R&B.
The Bible says to raise up a child in the way they should go and when they're old. So 90s R&B hip hop is.
Our family listens
We just
to.
lost all of the Christian art listeners because I said
What's your
that,
PK listen
but
to?
Okay.
We are talking about.
We are gonna talk about
expectations
this,
for
but-
pastors. So here we go.
But I do want to throw this out there.
Yeah.
I have a new thing that a kick I'm on with my kids is my kids put playlists together that are just like these endless playlists where they just keep adding songs.
Oh,
keep
just
adding
a
songs.
one?
And like they'll have like 12-hour playlists. And so I started telling them back in my day, I was like real like old guy, shaking his fist at a cloud, about like back in the day when we only had like so
CDs.
many. Well, I was going to say
Cassettes.
cassettes.
Cassettes, sorry.
But CDs too. And you only had so much time. You had like 60 minutes.
He's not
to make
At least I
that
can go
young.
vinyls.
He
Playlist.
remembers cassettes.
Yeah, I had my first mixes were on cassettes,
Yeah.
and you try to record them off the radio, and
Remember the Memorex tapes
yeah.
that were like hot pink and yellow?
Yeah. But I'm
Uh-huh.
trying to like I'm teaching my kids this, but I'm also trying to like really do this for myself. That now like I make playlists, but they can only be 60 minutes or less.
What?
So I'm trying to curate the playlist that I
Like-
make. So that,
I don't know how you
so that it
function.
feels a little bit like what
Right.
you and I would have grown up
Exactly.
on, because then it just takes a higher level of curation in your music. So I have like I think I was showing you the other day, like I have an early 80s R&B like for driving playlist, which is
Yeah.
kind of upbeat. So it's like Luther Vandross, Never Too Much, and like New Edition, If It's Love, trying to make it so that I have to really focus on the kind of sets. My buddy Zach wrote a book called Lower, and so after I read that book, I made like a Lower playlist that I sent to him. And so I'm trying to do this. I'm working on like a mid 90s like alt rock one right now. So it's kind of my thing right now is to try to bring back the level of curation that it takes to make a good playlist. So
This is hard for you to understand, but there was a time when you had to record, like if you wanted to listen to a song,
I remember. Because you would do it for me. You would burn them onto CDs.
but you had to wait on the radio. So like every
Oh,
night
right.
at like 7:00 or whatever, it was like the top 5 songs. And so if you wanted that song, you had to queue up the cassette player and record it
Mm,
from the radio.
that's crazy.
yeah, no. We just
How
make them
far?
based off themes. Or at
How
least
far
my
away?
playlists are based off like a general theme.
So do a theme, but try to keep it under 60 minutes. If it goes over 60
Oh, because
minutes, you
then
got to
once the
cut a
60
song.
minutes end, what do I do?
You have another playlist ready to go.
But then I got to go into my phone and hit the... Well, sometimes I just want that vibe for
Hey.
8 hours straight.
Then you go to Pandora.
Oh gosh. Okay. So growing up in the household,
Yes.
of
The
Pastor Alan Hanna, our Alan Hanna.
It's big shoes.
I heard that there were some shenanigans that would take place in your house growing up, and I heard that you might have pulled off one of the greatest pranks of all time. Could you maybe tell our audience about this prank?
Yes. So for those who don't know, Caden's birthday, my brother, is April 1st. So we like to pull some pranks in our house.
Shout out to Caden.
Yeah, we don't do super serious very often, but me and my brother were like, let's pull a prank on him.
It is also April 1st.
Yes.
April Fool's Day.
It was like school day, so we stayed up late to like try and get this off. He always like blow dries his hair after the shower. So I was what if we put flour in it? Well, then the cabinets were too loud and I didn't want to, you could hear from upstairs like everything. So when I went downstairs, I was like, I don't want to slam the cabinet and then they know I'm up to something. So I was like, what's the next best thing I have? I have glitter in my room.
Oh, man.
So I put glitter in the blow dryer, went to bed, completely forgot about it, honestly. Go downstairs, it's Caden's birthday. I don't know what we're doing, having breakfast or something. He comes downstairs, it completely ignores us. Goes to his car, leaves. I was like,
I do not remember that.
You did. You literally came downstairs, visibly ticked off, and then just went downstairs to the garage and left and drove away. Didn't hear from me. I was like, uh-oh. On my way to school, I'm driving. I don't know if Caden was in high school at the time. Anyway, I was driving to school. I was driving and I look and I get a text from you. It was like, I'm sorry I was mad this morning. Like, good prank. Because everyone would always say they couldn't pull one off on him because you would always figure it out.
Yes.
Because your coworkers would always try and pull stuff on you. But
well, let me explain it from my side. So I get out of the shower, I'm blow drying my hair, and I don't really see it because it's like I didn't have the light on, and then I turn the light on to go to do my hair, and there is glitter everywhere. I mean, like everywhere. I had glitter like for days.
It's so good.
Like staff would be like, "Why is there glitter in your eyebrow and ear?"
That's awesome. Jen's off camera. She's just nodding fondly at the memory.
I remember getting text.
And I'm
great
just,
job.
I'm like thinking about this because like my kids take note of Alan's hair. They call him Pastor Quiff because he's got the kind of quiff going up here. And so,
hence the need for a blow dryer.
And so I'm just imagining the quiff full of glitter just shimmering everywhere.
You were ticked that day. I remember. Me and Mom were laughing.
It was the one day I was upset in your childhood.
And my entire childhood.
Listen,
I remember.
Alex, I appreciate that you're here to share these stories because and to answer these questions because I know that if my kids were here, they're still in like just full roast mode, like nonstop.
There's still time. We have more episodes.
They're just nonstop roasting me at all times. So, what would you say was like what was your relationship with the church like growing up when your dad is in full-time ministry?
Formulating the words.
And this wasn't like for those who are listening. So I've been at ACAC for 6 years.
Yeah.
And
different
Alex,
churches
you were
like I remember
where
Houston.
Where you were 6 years ago. You were at Liberty.
I graduated in 22.
Yeah. So you were away at college at Liberty when we came to ACAC.
This is Caden's like senior year.
Caden was his senior year. So I was at a previous church before that. So just want to be clear for.
Yeah. I feel like it goes back to even before we moved to Pittsburgh. Like we lived in Houston. That's like the earliest memories I have. We were in an Assemblies of God church. And I just remember like going with him every Sunday morning and like getting my Starbucks. Like Dad's
it was
girls.
The best.
It was the best.
It was
I
girl
loved
dad.
It's
you
fun.
did. You know what I'm talking about?
It was fun. So like I have really fond memories of like times like that where I really got to look up to him as a worship pastor and like wanting to do those things. Then once you just like age, especially as like a girl, you're going through middle school and high school, you just see things differently. And I think church became more of an obligation than something I really wanted to be a part of or choose to be a part of. And so it was like, oh, we got to go on Wednesdays and we're going on Sundays and he's not home on Saturday nights. And it just became like, this is this thing that's taking time away from my family, not like something we all want to be a part of.
Yeah. I think that anyone that's in ministry full time, there's like this expectation that you just have your life together and like everybody's happy. There's like pressure that like, your marriage is always like awesome and your kids are like, you know, always well behaved and always eager to be at church and always obedient and doing the right things. And I know even we've tried really hard not to like put those expectations on our kids, and yet our kids still feel that pressure because they feel like everybody around them expects them to act a certain way and be a certain way because they're the children of a pastor. So how did you feel those expectations? How did you like, what did you think people expected of you as you were growing up?
Yeah. I will say my parents did a good job of like not expecting us to go to everything. Like the one expectation was like you do go to church on Sundays. Like I was not asked to go every Wednesday night. It was just like every once and then again, especially with my mom volunteering a lot, like it was like this is what we have to do. But there are definitely a lot of unspoken expectations or pressures that I wrestled with a lot, and having conversations even with my parents about it, and them not necessarily seeing it because they're in it, but not feeling of just like how people are even viewing you. So there's a lot of times where it was like I would get comments like, oh, you're a goody goody. And if you know me at all, or if you don't know me, I am someone that is very much super independent in my own person. And I don't like when people put expectations on me. Or if you know him, you can assume that much.
This is the mini version of me.
Like it's not shocking by any means. So when people were kind of have this expectation of like, you can't do that, or why are you doing that? Why are you questioning things? It felt like there was an overarching like, shh, don't say that. Don't act that way. Don't question, especially in faith. Like you can't ask those questions. Like God is God, or whatever it was.
And like you said, like your parents weren't necessarily the ones that were putting that pressure on you, but it was kind of the folks around that you were sensing that from.
I think a lot is also said in what is not said. So like though my parents weren't saying these are the expectations, what wasn't being said was communicating, oh, we're all in agreement. So even though they weren't like, hey, we don't expect this of you, and like we know you're not perfect, and sometimes it was said, but most of the time it was like, okay, well, you're working at this church, and as a adolescent, you're not thinking through the roots of like how they're going about things. You don't really think that way until you become an adult. Like but in those times it was like, well, what they're not saying and what everyone else is saying, we're endorsing, right? Because you're working at the church that these people are expecting things of me. Like we're hanging out with those people, so if they think that, my parents must think that.
Yeah, that I'm interested in what you're talking about here, of just like how people are viewing what you can and can't do. I had a conversation with one of my daughters yesterday where she was upset because her friends are picking on her a bit about some of the boundaries that we have for her. And as we were having that conversation, I realized that in her friends' eyes, those boundaries exist because she's a pastor's kid. In our eyes, they were just like, hey, these are generally good boundaries to protect you from things. And we wish every parent did this. So like we're in a Chick-fil-A drive-through getting milkshakes last night, having this conversation. And because it was a Christian conversation, we had to be at Chick-fil-A. But the
Lord's chicken.
But as we're like in the drive-through waiting, I was like, I had this epiphany. I was like, hey, you do know that some of these boundaries and limits that we have for you are not because like we're Christian. They're not because you're a pastor's kid.
Yeah.
And like for her, because she was associating what her friends were saying about like, hey, like she doesn't have freedom to do sleepovers all the time, or she there's some apps and stuff on her phone that we're just like a no on, but it has nothing to do with like a spiritual decision as much as just like, hey, we think that it's good for you to have boundaries on these things. How were you, at what point did you feel like you were able to like discern the difference of like what like might have been like good parenting versus like, oh, you got to do this because like
to be frank, I don't think I realized that till college. Just because of what I said. You're a high schooler who isn't thinking about anyone but themselves. You're a middle schooler who's thinking about their friends. Like you don't have the emotional maturity to try and think about things from your parents' lens because they're the enemy. Not because you want them to be, but because your friends make them out to be. Like, the whole world is telling you they're, especially today, like, every high schooler thinks they're grown. I hear that all the time from my high schoolers. Like, I'm grown. What are you talking about? No, you're not. They just think they are, and I thought I was. Like, I thought I had it figured out, and they're just, like, that lack of communicating. I think in our house, we just functioned the way we knew how, and it was better than I know what my parents had experienced. But, like, even now, it's like, oh, we could have done things differently, or, like, we could have had that conversation. But I think we talk about that now more than we ever did then.
Yeah, like, one of the things that shaped this for Tara and I that was a little different was that I was a PK. So I grew up somewhat in Alex's shoes. It was a smaller church, but my dad was a pastor. And so when we had children and being in ministry, I mean, my wife didn't do that, but, I tried to, like, counter everything I experienced when I was a kid. And there's just some things that you can't counter. And what I saw, I don't know if you found this to be true, and it's just not fair, and your kids probably had this, because I was a worship pastor, I was gifted in music. I remember hearing people in the church say to you, "Oh, you're probably going to have a great voice." Like, there was a while, like, you do have that. Like, you are musically gifted. But remember, you would play, like, you played keys in the worship team and students. And so, like, when they saw her starting to play keyboard and sing on the worship team, all of a sudden it was this, oh, you're going to grow up and be like your dad and worship pastor. And I think it is hard for church people sometimes they don't do it intentionally, but when they see pastors' kids, and then sometimes when they see the same gifting in the parent, they automatically assume that that's their destiny and what's their head, and it's not fair.
Yeah. And you're right. Like, I think for the most part, a lot of folks are like, they're trying to be like affirming and encouraging.
Right.
They think they're approaching it that way.
Kids don't discern that.
Yeah.
Like, and I think part of it is it's easy in the church to get excited about those who are in authority or in leadership. So sometimes it's not necessarily the fault of anyone, but the way that we function in the world is we like to look up to someone. Like, we like to be excited about we have a president, and we, like, want to champion someone that adults just get so excited of, like, that's my pastor, and that's the pastor's kid, that we get blinded by almost the fame of it all rather than, like, the reality of they're just a person, they're human, and they're authentic. And it's the same thing with parents and kids. Like, the rose-colored glasses, that's my parent, versus, like, oh, they're human too and figuring this out for the first time. Like, we're all in that with something. And I think that's just what happens with church people. Yeah.
You talked about just like how, like, kind of when you were younger, just like a lot of those good times of, like, coming along with dad to church and to events and things like that. And then that shift kind of happening. And I know that that's been something I've seen in my own family where, like, when my kids were little, it was like the church was like their castle. Yay. Like, they could like come, and we always got Starbucks, or where we were from, it was Alabaster coffee. We'd stop and get drinks and go to the church with snacks. And it was just like a play day. In fact, at one point my wife bought a bounce house that we set up outside of my office for the kids just to bounce.
Yeah.
Like, it was awesome. It was super awesome. But so they had this, like, really, church was fun for a long time. And then it did shift into, like, well, dad's busy. And it seems like dad has to keep missing things or going away for things. And sometimes that's really hard, I think, as parents, for us to, like, navigate the tension of, like, the demands of the church with the needs of our family, and making sure that that's balanced. And I know that we go through seasons where that's not easy. Would you just say more about what it's like when you feel like, the church is, like, competing for your attention with your dad?
Yeah, I feel like an example that came to mind when you said that was, and I remember this really clearly, but I think it was the first moment that the glass shattered for me, if I am honest. And it was, you were on a mission trip in Peru and you missed my birthday. And I just remember that being like, oh, this sucks. Like, he is in a different country, and I get it's work. Like, you have the understanding of, like, it's work, but this is my birthday. Like, this is a big event in my life. And I think it was also at the age where, like, he would always go on trips and then bring me back Polly Pockets. And I think this was an age where it was like, I don't care about Polly Pockets anymore. Like, so it was like, it's not exciting for you to come home and give me a Polly Pocket. Like, it's like, you need to prove that, like, that was worth missing type of thing. And I feel like that was probably where that comparison between who is more valuable came into play, of like, where is your attention going to? And then it even honestly caused a rift between me and my brother, because then it was like, I'm watching my brother deal with the same thing, but then I would compare how he chose to spend his time with me with how he chose to spend time with my brother. And so, like, there were times that I was like, you go to every one of Caden's sports events, but, like, you didn't show up to my volleyball game. But it was like, we just now it's like we bonded over different things. Like, he showed up for other things, whether it was like practicing or just being there to have tough conversations. Whereas, like, I know him and Caden didn't necessarily always do that, and sports was their thing. So it definitely has, like, rippled, and I can pinpoint those moments. I don't think it was anything that, like, I'm like, oh, I wish you would have done this better. It was just like, you don't understand. And another thing that, like, if you're not aware of, you can't have a conversation about.
Yeah. I think it's tough. Alan, you probably can relate to this. Like, early on when you first, like, began working in ministry, like, you feel, because it's for Jesus, like, it's hard to say no to stuff. It's hard to say no to the meetings that people ask for. It's hard to say no to the opportunities to serve and minister. It's hard to, and so we end up saying yes to a whole lot that ends up coming at the expense of our families. I know my wife has used the phrase, like, the church was the other woman in our marriage early on. And it was like, and sometimes it's that, like, that kind of false, like, sense that, like, oh, I got to say yes to it because it's ministry. Sometimes it's because we have, like, Messiah complexes, and we feel like we have to do stuff to, like, save the world. And I know that I've kind of gone between both, but something that I appreciated, I think this comes with the wisdom of old age, is that
you calling me old? Wisdom.
I didn't know you were talking about you or him.
Yes.
I was like, I'm confused.
For both of us, but for those of us with some grays on our chins. But the when I arrived here, like, one of the things that was immediately modeled to me was the boundaries that you set for, like, personal time and family time. Like, it was Caden's last year playing basketball at Cal, and you made it to every game. And, that meant missing some church events, and whether it was Saturday night services or elder meeting, like, I
preached less this year than I ever have.
You were like, I got to make it a priority. When I got here, I was here a week, and you sent me back. You were like, you got to go back for your daughter's birthday.
Yeah.
Because she was turning 13 and I was going to be here, and it was like, no, you got to go. And so, like, I really appreciate, like, I know that, like, some of the fruit that came from some of the pain probably is, like, just being able to now have the wisdom to prioritize, probably in ways that we wish we would have drew better boundaries back then.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. Like I know, because we've talked about this before, like, I know that moment she remembers vividly, me missing her birthday. But it's still, like, today is hard to hear, because, like, just as a dad, I can't take that memory back. I can't get that moment back. And I like, in the moment, obviously I just wasn't even, it wasn't on my radar. And you said it, like, I do think a lot of it being in ministry in the church, hey, you're doing this for Jesus. But I think some of it too, like, whether you're in ministry or not. I was talking to a friend from college who was through Pittsburgh yesterday, and we were talking about this both. He just turned 50. I'm early 50s. Like, when you're young, when you have kids, whether you're in ministry in the corporate world, you're driven. Like, you want to accomplish things, and that's not bad. Whether you're in the church or not, it's not inherently bad, but time does bring perspective. And I was sharing with my friend yesterday, like, like I love ACAC. I love pastoring ACAC. I'm going to pour my heart and soul out for it. I want it to grow, but like you do get to a point where you're like, I just want to be faithful.
Yep.
And like, you just get to that point. But when you have kids in the mix, and like, I'm sure there's people listening to this now, like great salesmen, and they're striving for their business. It's an odd season of life. You're young and you're driven, but it's also the time when you have kids.
Yep.
And unfortunately, you don't realize until your kids are older. I'm fortunate enough that I'm speaking for you, but I don't think you're damaged to the point like you have a relationship with Jesus today. Yeah.
You're in ministry.
You're in ministry. You know.
Yeah, who would have thought that? Not me.
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing, but
yeah.
No.
You know what I'm saying? I
think to speak to that too, like as someone who's not married but in ministry and like single, there's still that pressure to like run. And I think that always started with the world of like, the world is always telling you to go, 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 especially in your early 20s or late 20s, where it's like, that's the time, that's your golden years, like take charge and just run with it. But when you guys were speaking, I feel like boundaries is a buzzword right now, and we talk about it a lot at work, and just having healthy rhythms.
Yeah.
And we've been going through, my boss, he really prioritizes like having healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
That when we're on the weekends, if we have a work event, we need to be present, but outside of that, like you need to be spending time for yourself and fueling yourself. But we keep going back to Mark 1, where Jesus he had just healed a bunch of people, and then goes off to the mountain and prays. It says it's like early in the day. It's like probably 4 or 3 a.m. Like the sun isn't out yet. And then the disciples come running to him, and this word just sticks out to me. It's always like, everyone is looking for you. Where have you been? And I think we just sit there and we think everyone is looking for us in ministry. And the only person that can handle everyone is Jesus. And even Jesus knew, I can heal everyone. I can handle all these problems, but it's not now. It's not going to happen now. And I need to be with the Father. And I think sometimes we just forget perspective of like that savior complex you're talking about. Like we think everyone needs us. And so we get stuck in the tension of being pulled both ways rather than sitting in faithfulness.
And rhythms is a much better word than boundaries. Like I think that's what you were trying to say too, because the problem with boundaries, and especially working in a church and as we lead a staff, it makes it sound as though every week and every day is the same. And if you have good boundaries, you'll be fine. When especially in ministry and at a church our size, like there just are some seasons that are really heavy. And I don't care what kind of boundaries you have. But if you have a rhythm, like we know, okay, heading into Christmas, this is just, we're gonna run. But then that healthy rhythm is afterwards, we can take a step back and breathe. And I mean, there's a lot we could say about rhythms. But.
Yeah. I think that there is a sense, if I could go back and do the last 20 years differently, I wish I would have understood like how important it was that God cares as much about my rest as he does about my work. Because I thought that for a long time, like I had to do the work and that always had to come first because that's what was for the glory of God. But my rest is for the glory of God. Like my rest is like for my communion with God. And Jesus doing like, you know, regular ordinary dude stuff, like needing to take a break is like a really important thing for me to see. It's not just he's going around to every town healing people and like preaching and
never
just
ran anywhere. He walked everywhere.
He takes so much time to chill out, and we have so many scenes in the Gospels of Jesus like taking a nap and just relaxing. He dips out and goes across the sea to get away from everybody. Like those things are really important, and I think that if I could just do it all over again, I wish I would have learned that first, so that I would have prioritized rest a little bit more. Because I know in my own family that's a pain point. It's for the first decade or so of ministry, I ran myself ragged because I didn't stop.
And that's you understand this. What people miss, one hard thing about being a pastor, when we talk about always being on, is you know, when we're preaching on the pulpit, you're at your best. You know what I mean? Like and what I mean by that is you've prepared, you've had your 2 cups of coffee, you're energized, adrenaline, anointing, whatever you want to, like, you're there. But that's what the majority of the church sees. And oftentimes that's what they expect, that same Alan or Spencer on a Monday morning walking through the hall, or when you're heading out to your car. And like, how many times I've said this before, like, you're walking through the hallway, like, it could be after church, and my mind's like
breathing
on, I'm going to meet my wife for lunch, or something's happened in my family that no one knows, and my facial, and somebody says hi to me, and I'm like, oh, hi. And like an instant judgment is made because I don't have the same amount of energy as I did 15 minutes ago when I was preaching.
Yeah.
And they're assuming like, oh, he doesn't like me, or he's not uninterested. It's like that level of always being on. Or this happened the other day. I was in my study break, and actually it was Emma's mom who was listening here. Tara and I went and we went and saw a movie, and it was Freakier Friday, which I do not recommend to go see, by the way. But anyway, I was on my study break, and I'm out, and all of a sudden I had been away from the church, and like 2 ladies from our church, and I ran into them, and I just threw me off, and they were thrown off because I hadn't been gone. So it was this weird, and they handled it great. But sometimes those interactions with church people, when you don't see them, assumptions are made based on how you respond, because
but that also carries into the home, right? Because
100%.
like you get onto the platform, or you're doing ministry, or you're in pastor mode at the church, and like you're bringing the energy,
you're the
and
guy.
you're smile, you're making jokes, and you're fun.
You accidentally say things about your kids.
Yeah, you're but
it's never an accident.
But there's like a
That's true.
there's like a you're like on for people.
Yeah.
And then like you crash a little bit, but your family gets the crash.
That's true.
And that causes, I think, some challenges too, where it's like I know that my kids has expressed, and my wife has often expressed over the years, that like it's hard to see me go from like pastor mode, where I'm like great to everyone, to being like grumpy at home because I'm like tired and exhausted.
You give the church your absolute all energy and best, and then you come home and you crash on the couch.
Yeah. So what's that like to experience?
I never did that.
Never, ever. You still don't do that. I feel like there's part of me that understood, because I'm the same way. Like, I'm not super extroverted and get energy with people. Like, I don't necessarily thrive, and like, I enjoy it, yes, but I'm a little more like, I get having to be on, and I think that pastor's kid part helped, where it's like, I get it, I go to church and I have to be on too, and then I come home and I just want to crash, like. So I think for me, it wasn't necessarily something I ever thought about or struggled with, but I know like my brother, who's super active, and not to speak for him, or even like my mom, like that was a struggle for them. And I always remember being like, I don't really care. Like, we get to nap and watch football. Like, that's fine with me. But it was hard. And there are times where it is hard at like Christmas and stuff, where it's like, we are running as a family, and we all just want to go to a Christmas party, but he's way too exhausted to go to a Christmas party. And so those kind of things were sad, like, or hurt, because it was like me and my mom are the ones showing up. And it's like, I don't have a single mom. My dad is in my life, and he's just too tired. And as a kid, you don't understand why. Now, with age and like being in ministry, like, I get it. It's exhausting. And there's just I think part of that, not to go too deep, is also just a spiritual warfare thing of like, you're going and speaking the word to a bunch of people, and you have to be mentally in the right headspace for that, and that's draining to do after. And there is a weight that you're carrying as a pastor, like the Bible talks about it, like, you're going to be held to a higher standard than everybody else. If you're not on, you have a lot of influence and could use that really poorly, and that's just, I think, important to also recognize. But as a kid, no, I wasn't necessarily thinking about that.
So what would you say? I'm curious. Like, we may have some staff listening to this, and we certainly have pastor friends who have kids that are in middle school or high school. What would you say to those who are in ministry that have young kids? Yeah, what would you say to them? How could they help their kids?
I feel like I've said this to some of my friends who actually are in ministry and have kids. that are like under the age of 5, I'm like, that's the time to go your MDiv. That is the time to go and pursue your career, because I feel like everything under 5 is just great, or even like 6 or 7. Like, you're not thinking about, oh, my dad's not around. Like, even though as a kid you may verbalize like, where's dad, where's mom, I don't feel like you feel the effects of it until you're probably in elementary school, and it becomes a little more real of like, oh, I'm at school all day, so then when I'm home and now they're just gone. Because I've had friends who are in their like early 30s and getting their MDiv and have just been like, I feel so bad, I'm never home. And I'm like, they're not gonna remember this, but like, I remember when he got his MDiv when I was in high school, and like that was another thing that was taking away from everything else. Like, frankly, like, that was just another thing of like, you're working full time because you have to support like your family, and then you're also doing something that furthers it and will help us in the future. But as a high schooler, I don't care.
You just want dad.
Yeah, this is another thing that now you're studying when you get home immediately, and I don't see you because you're in the office with the doors closed. Like, those are just, so I feel like to them, like, do those things early, or be very mindful of it, and remember that there's tons of statistics on middle school and high school of like, those are your most formative years, whether we want to believe that or not. And as much as high schoolers are going to push away from you, they're looking at everything you're doing and seeing where you show up, and it means a lot to them whether or not they like vocalize that or not.
Yeah, I think just to kind of wrap that point up, I think my kids are entering teenage years. I've got 2 teenagers now and one that's about to be. And one of the things that I was beginning to feel is like the ministry I was in, and what were the expectations, what the needs actually, like the real needs of the ministry I was in as a lead pastor, was not compatible with like the health of my family, because like the burden, the weight of being a lead pastor, like took a lot of me. And like I needed something that took a different kind of energy so that I could be more emotionally available to my kids, which is what I was wrestling with when your dad said, hey, any thought about not being a lead pastor and coming to Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
A big reason we made this move was for this season of our lives, like we really felt like being a lead pastor didn't fit what our kids needed from us with the kind of ministry we're in. And so I would just say, like, especially for like leaders that are out there, ministry leaders, like ministry is not just like the corporate ladder where the goal is to just keep climbing. And I think that there are seasons. I think more of us should like consider that there are seasons for different types of ministry leadership in our lives, and that for some of us, I know I felt it, like the right thing for this season was to not sit in that lead chair. And so now I get to like sip my coffee and debrief the pressures that you feel and whatnot. But you're in a season where you can lead with that capacity.
Yeah, I say it to Tara all the time, because I was late. I didn't become a lead pastor until I was 47, 46, where these guys were older. I don't know how you did it with young kids. Like I look at the response, especially a church planner.
Yeah.
Like we have staff and resources that
I didn't do it well, is what I'm saying.
No, I think
Sure
you did. You did do it well, but like I mean, granted, my energy level would have been different 30 years ago, but young couples that are lead pastors raising young kids, that's I don't think I could have done that. But Lord knows. So
Alex, one last thing. Thank you for being here. This has been a good conversation. Like, when you look back at growing up in the church as a pastor's kid, what are some things that you just kind of cherished? Like, what are the things that when you look back on, you go, man, I'm so glad I got to experience that.
Yeah. As corny as it is, like, if I didn't stay in the church, I truly believe I wouldn't know Jesus now. And watching, I don't know, that's to make me emotional. Okay. Watching my friends, especially who like now I'm on staff with in Young Life, who like met Jesus through Young Life, and they truly like would not know Jesus without something like that. Looking at and like that, my Young Life is the church and like growing up in the church. now, like, I feel like people are like, oh, like, that's not the same. And it's not to that extent. Like, my family knew Jesus, and so I was well supported, whereas many others aren't. But there were so many things that even happened while I was in the church that caused church hurt that should have pushed me away from Jesus and did at times. But I always had that biblical foundation of just like knowing the truth from such a young age that I would always come back to it, and whether I was questioning it or not, I was never told not to question, if that makes sense, by my own family. Like, and there were conversations we had where it did feel sometimes like you shouldn't question that, but I was still allowed to question it whether they agreed or not. And that freedom is what propelled me to keep questioning and now be so solid in my faith. And I'm like, you could never like trying, like I could never do anything else. But hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so.
What would I'm gonna ask you another question. Can I ask you about what would you say to those who are in ministry with kids? I'm gonna flip it because most of the people listening to this aren't in ministry. What would you say to congregants, people who are attending church? What would you say to them? How could they encourage like kids of those who are on staff or even families themselves? How can they best support PKs?
First, I do want to address that I don't think this is only felt by pastors' kids. I think this is also felt by church kids. Like, if you just grow up in the church in general, I think you feel the same pressures. Whether it may not be from a greater standpoint of like a whole congregation coming at you, but it's like you feel it from your parents because they're the ones making you be there, or because they're volunteering, who they're volunteering with. It's all like they're feeling that too, and I've seen that being in student ministry for a while now, that like I've watched kids who have grown up in the church feel the same things and question, why am I here? But to answer your question, I think the best way to support, whether it's a church kid, a PK, whether it's a kid who just met Jesus, is to allow them the freedom to question. Like, that is what I love about my job, is getting to walk with kids in the hole that they're in and genuinely just do life with them and be okay with allowing them to question. Because I think too often as parents or adults, we just want them to know the right answer and to do the right thing. But the biggest gift, and I've learned this from like different leadership styles and like watching other people that I just like observe or who are older and wiser than me, including like you now and as a senior pastor, is just like letting people fail. Like, and I'm someone who wants to control and just give you the right answer and do it right the first time. I'm someone who wants to just do it right the first time. I don't like failing. But really allowing the space for kids to mess up and then come to you with it and be like, hey, I did this. And the knee-jerk reaction not being like, ugh, like, why did you do that? Or like, that was wrong. But just being like, okay, like, let's talk about it. Why, like, what was the thought process here? Just being very aware of, again, the things that aren't said. So whether it's your facial expressions or your body, like, they're reading those things. And that is the greatest gift you could give any church kid or any kid, any adult, would just the freedom to question and ask why.
Yeah, you and I, one of the reasons we just work so well together and get along is, I don't know if we've ever really talked about it. It's just how we approach ministry in church is that authenticity and transparency is really important to you and I. Just being the same person Sunday morning that you are Friday night, but then also allowing everybody around you to do that. I think the church as a whole has gotten better. And I think that's what you're saying too, is just allowing room for mistakes. We both try to be open with our failures. We were talking even before we started recording this about Santa Claus and Halloween, and that may be an episode later, but just understanding that people have different personal convictions, and allowing space for that and not projecting those. And that's my hope here at ACAC. I know that's your hope, and especially when you're talking about kids and marriages, just the room and space to be who you are, to make mistakes, to know that you and I are going to say the wrong thing at the wrong time sometimes.
And owning that.
Yeah, being quick to own
sin.
it. Yeah,
We
quick to
sin.
apologize, ask forgiveness.
Like, yeah, it's really important.
And never regret being more gentle than you are being corrective. But I think that's definitely like the greatest thing I see in kids is they just want to be kids, and kids fall down and their parents are there to like pick them back up, and Jesus did it too. So it's like it's that hard thing of like he showed us, even though we don't hear a lot about who he is as a kid. Like in Luke 2, he's at the synagogue and his parents left. And he was expected to come home and he didn't come home, and his parents came looking after him. And even in that, was he wrong? No, but he was obedient. And so like, but they were gracious with him and understood. There's just that tension of like walking with everyone in life. You should do your best to approach them where they are.
I love that. I'm a big fan of curiosity. So, well, Alex, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much.
We're glad you're with us. Hope at some point we'll have you back.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, girl.
Of course.
Appreciate it. Stay away from the blow dryer.